there's a law called double jeopardy that once you have been tried for a crime and acquitted, you cannot be recharged with that crime. My dad's innocent. He was proven innocent. After my dad actually finally confessed, it was a true gut punch. I don't think I've ever had that feeling in my entire life. I'm not sure if I ever will again. He did it, and he got away with it. And how he kept his composure and carried on, I don't know how you can do that. He let us down as a father. Absolutely knew she had everything to do with it. She's been a liar all her life and a manipulator. No doubt in my mind, she was responsible for this. I have such hatred for Marianne Shore and what she did to our family. I have no doubt in my mind that she was an evil person for the majority of her life. When I see these photos of my dad, it still is extremely hard to believe that he did what he did to another human being. I don't see it in him. My dad always came across as being very happy, good personality. He was never a grumpy person or sad. He would sit on the couch and watch TV and he'd laugh and, he seemed generally happy as a person. But when my mom and dad got divorced in 1973 and he took custody of myself and my sisters, things changed. Out in public, he was a nice, likable guy. But at home, my dad was a little bit different. I would consider him to be a control freak. He wanted everything his way. Chores that you had to do, if they weren't done perfect, he yelled a lot at us. When my dad would come home, he would go immediately into our bedrooms and inspect to see if they were clean and up to his standards.
Junior!
And when he called me Junior, I knew something was not right. It was not going to be good.
I thought I told you to clean up in here.
You could see the stress. His face would get a little red. Veins are kind of popping out on his neck. He would call me stupid. The intimidation factor of him being in your face and yelling at you, it is a scary thing.
You can't follow simple instructions, can you?
My dad really never hit us, but I almost felt like I'd rather have gotten a spanking and be done with it than have to be yelled and mentally berated every day. And he would just say, "You've got 15 minutes to get this clean, and I'll be back to take a look at it."
There had better not be a speck of dust in here, you got me?
And then he would turn around and leave, and you would be doing everything you can to get it fixed the way he wanted it perfectly. But he would not let us get the vacuum cleaner out and vacuum the floor. We had to physically pick it up like it was a punishment to us. It was a tough time of my life. There were a lot of days it just wasn't fun to be in that house. To talk about Jen, you just rather be beat sometimes. I have to put up with that. That is crazy. Oh, okay. The first time I met Marianne Shore was after my mom and dad got divorced. She was his secretary at work. She was probably in her 20s. My dad was maybe in his 30s, I guess. He used to go on business trips, and she was going to watch us while he was out of town. She seemed very nice, but it didn't take long for her to quickly assert herself. She let you know that she was in charge.
Big Alice Cooper fan, huh?
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah, I like him too.
And one of the first times I realized that Marianne Shore was not quite who I thought she was one time she said, I will buy you every Alice Cooper album if you tell your dad how much you like me and how much you want me around.
Sound good?
And if you don't, I will tell him about the cigarettes that I found in your room. And that kind of took me by surprise.
Where did you get those?
I basically pleaded with her to stay out of my room. It's none of your business. This is my stuff. She looked at me and laughed and said, I can do whatever I want. And if you don't do what I tell you or ask you to do, I will tell your dad.
Who's he gonna believe, you or me?
That's scary. What are you gonna do as a young kid? If he found out that I was smoking, I couldn't even fathom how mad he would get. I was scared to death.
Your dad comes home tomorrow. Let me know what you decide.
I did whatever Marianne asked me to do. I would tell my dad great things about Marianne Shore. All the time. Anytime I could. I would say, I really like Marianne. She's a really nice person. She treats us well. She takes care of us. She's really fun to be around. I really like her. You should keep her. And it was just a flat out lie. That was a huge turning point in me realizing that she was not to be trusted at all. There were some things that were happening around our house that were causing a lot of tension, things that we couldn't really explain. And a lot of it happened when my dad was gone.
What did you do with my shirt? What shirt?
My sister shared a room, and my older sister would have a shirt, really nice shirt, and somehow it would end up in my other sister's drawer, and it would have a burn hole in it.
I didn't touch your stupid shirt. Then how did it get ruined? How the hell should I know?
It would start this fight between them. It seemed sort of normal, sibling rivalry, but these things with the clothes would happen a lot. Marianne Shore really never did anything to stop us at all. She just was there in the background. It almost seemed like she sat back and just let it keep escalating.
Get off me! Stay out of my stuff. Then you stay out of mine.
Later down the road, we figured out that Marianne was doing things like this to us in order to cause tension, because I think in her mind, she really wanted my dad for herself.
Why do you always accuse me of stuff I didn't do?
We told my dad it was Marianne. He absolutely did not believe us. He called us liars. You're lying. And I think that played into Marianne Shore's hands. She was manipulating the whole situation so she could get rid of us kids. She really wanted us gone at that point so she could have my dad, in the house to herself. But, we didn't know that she was just out of control. Once my sister and I figured out that, we weren't doing these things together, we were saying, this is not us. Marianne is doing this to us. And he absolutely did not believe us. Marianne was around a lot during these times, and she was in charge of us kids during those 2 to 3 week periods that my dad was gone. This one time, mysteriously, a hole got cut in the back of a brand new couch that we've got. It was a physical hole It was about this big.
So, how was everything?
Not great.
Guess who found this hole? Marianne Shore found it while my dad was on one of these trips. And of course, she told my dad.
Junior, where are you?
And that was one of the worst days of my life as a child. My dad was so mad.
You explain this.
What?
Yes!
I've never seen my dad this mad in his life. I mean, I think his veins were out 2 inches on his neck. He was purple red. He yelled at me easily for an hour. I just told him, constantly, over and over, I didn't do it. Why would I do it? Doesn't make sense that I would just cut a hole in the back of a couch. Why would you do that? And then there was Marianne Shore. She was just quiet as a mouse, looking down with this sort of uncomfortable smirk on her face. Not saying a word, not looking up.
Look at her. She probably did it.
Stop trying to blame Marianne for everything.
As smart as a man as my dad was, he couldn't see through his rage.
Get out of here now.
Marianne Shore essentially truly succeeded in driving these massive wedges between me and my sisters and my dad.
I'm so sorry.
I just remember sitting in my room and crying for hours. And I mean, really, your mind starts to get dark. What can you do to her to turn the tides? I think it was probably as close as I've ever thought to ever killing somebody in my entire life. Like really wanting somebody dead at that point. Now, I'm a smart guy. I'm not going to kill somebody. But man, your mind goes into some dark places at that point. I just wanted to escape. I'm gonna have to take a break for a second. Dang, I didn't expect that. Well, that took me back to a very dark place. They broke up several times, and it never lasted that long. They always were back together. But when they broke up for good, I'm pretty sure I was 15 or 16 at the time. It was just me and my dad. My older sister graduated high school and she had moved out. And my other sister followed shortly thereafter when she graduated.
Going away again?
Yeah. My dad said, hey, I've got to go on a trip overseas and it's going to be a little longer than my normal trip, about 30 days. He said, I'm not sure when I'm going to be back.
This time's gonna be a little different. I should be back in about a month.
Is everything okay?
Everything's fine.
And normally when my dad would leave, and he would always call a couple times to check on us, and then he would always have somebody staying with us. Well, that time he actually gave me money for groceries and just said, take care of the house. I'll see you when I get back. He didn't have anybody checking in on me. So it was weird. It was very strange. He was gone, and we did not hear from him until the day he showed back up. Years later, talking with my dad's lawyer, I found out he actually went to prison during that time for 30 days. He was charged and convicted of tax evasion. And Marianne, apparently, when they broke up for good, she was going to get revenge. Marianne had turned him in on the tax evasion charge. I'm not sure my dad knew at the time she was the one that turned him in, but when my dad showed up in the taxi to come home, Marianne Shore was with him. The first time I met Brenda I was bartending, and he brought her in and introduced me to her, and they had a couple of drinks.
Girlfriend?
Brenda, my son Michael.
She was a very quiet person. Didn't really say a lot. Beautiful smile. Very nice. She seemed so different from Marianne. and it was like a breath of fresh air. I was like, wow, he's actually met somebody that seems very cool, very nice, genuine. They seemed very happy together.
We've been dating for a little while now. That's great.
Maybe that's the last we'll see of Marianne Shore. This is a picture of him and Brenda. He looks really happy, but she doesn't have this big smile on her face. She kind of looks indifferent to me, which, I don't know if this was at the time where they were having some issues. I feel like maybe she's not as happy about their relationship as he is. And I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I read from her face. There was a night that my dad, wanted me to come over for dinner because he had an announcement to make. We were all sitting at the table. My grandmother was there. My aunt was there.
I have some big news.
And he made this announcement that he had asked Brenda to marry him, and she accepted, and he gave her a ring.
I proposed to Brenda and she said yes.
We were like, wow, congratulations. But the odd part about that was she wasn't there. Usually, when you make those announcements, your significant other is there.
That's great news, Dad. Where's Brenda right now? She couldn't get out of work in time to be here.
Looking back on that, it was very, very strange that Brenda was not with him when he made that announcement to our family. But I just thought it was the way he did things, That's just the way my dad is. I wrote it off to the quirkiness of his personality.
We haven't set a date yet, but as soon as we do, we'll let everyone know.
I had no idea that she had given him the ring back or told him that she wanted to call off the engagement. We didn't know that at the time. That was never made clear to any of us. It only came out in the days after Brenda disappeared. I was working a bartending shift at the restaurant, and I got a call.
Forte's Tavern.
And it was my dad. He was crying, saying that Brenda was missing. They can't find her.
Whoa, Dad, slow down. What's going on?
I've never heard my dad cry before. And he was sobbing, crying, like crazy crying.
Okay, I'll be there as soon as my shift ends.
I finished my shift and I went over to my dad's house where my grandmother was, and my aunt was there. And they are sitting around the kitchen table, and my dad is crying hysterically.
Dad, are you okay? What happened?
Brenda's missing.
I have never seen my dad in this state. He was telling us the story of how they had spent the day together, and then they went out to eat at one of their favorite places to eat, and then she left to go home.
She said she called me when she got home. She never did.
The police found the car on this highway that night. The car had a flat tire, and the car had been broken into, and there had been blood found, and the radio was stolen.
They said there's no sign of her.
They don't know what happened to her, and he feared the worst. I mean, the whole situation was extremely uncomfortable, seeing my dad just sobbing incoherently about how she's missing, she's gone, she's probably dead.
Calm down.
And he kept saying, I don't know what I'm going to do without her. I love her so much.
She's gone. I know.
Looking back on it now, it was almost over the top. When they found Brenda's car on the highway, there was blood on the seat and the stereo was gone. That was not Brenda's blood. It was not my dad's blood. It was somebody out of the blue saw a car on the highway and they broke into it and stole the stereo. And that threw their investigation off from the very beginning. Brenda's family really didn't like my dad, so they were very adamant that they absolutely knew it was him that did it. They just kept reiterating in the press that he was still their number one suspect. The focus turned on my dad. The newspaper every day had articles about this investigation and my dad, but my dad was never came across as worried about anything. He was very adamant that he was innocent, and that's what he portrayed. When I got done getting ready for work and dressed, I opened up my door, grabbed my paper, and when I had folded my paper, they had found Brenda's body. It was the picture of my dad, Mel Ignato, arrested for the murder of Brenda Sue Schaefer. Big headlines, and your heart sinks. You're just like, oh my God. And of course, I turned on the TV, and the news is just nonstop about my dad and the arrest. He was charged with murder. I still didn't believe it, but it's devastating to see this. It just seems so surreal, like this couldn't happen. Marianne actually led the police to the body, so now they had a body. And that was a shocker because, we had no idea Marianne Shore was in the picture in my dad's life at all. The FBI and the police had been tracking my dad, and they had his phone bugged. And Marianne Shore, she lived in a house that had woods behind it. She called my dad and said she was really concerned because they were going to develop this land, and that they will find that site that my dad and Marianne buried her in. The police started putting pressure on Marianne Shore. She finally cracked and said, I can take you to where the body is. Marianne Shore told them my dad murdered Brenda, killed her with chloroform, is how she actually died, suffocated her. Supposedly after sexually assaulting, torturing her. It's just horrific. When we found out that Marianne Shore had been involved some way and she led the police to the body, it was like a light bulb. She did it. My dad had nothing to do with that. That was Marianne Shore. She is crazy enough to have killed Brenda because she wanted my dad. The body was buried in the woods behind the house she was renting. There was no doubt in our minds that he was innocent. He was innocent. It was not him. It was Marianne Shore. The first time I saw my dad after he got arrested, the things that my dad said were very reassuring to me.
I had nothing to do with this.
I didn't do this. This was the work of Marianne Shore. I'm absolutely convinced of this. Stay strong. Don't worry about a thing. This is all going to work out.
You and I both know who did this. She's setting me up.
Didn't show any signs of being distraught or distressed. It was that calm facade that he had and confident. I felt very good about what was going to happen with my dad.
I'll be out of here in no time. Okay. I'll see you soon.
But looking back, he really didn't mention a whole lot about Brenda. It was more about Marianne and how he couldn't believe she would have done it, as opposed to grieving about Brenda. And I don't think that I ever really questioned my dad if he killed Brenda. I never asked that question. Did you kill Brenda? During his original trial for the murder of Brenda Sue Schaefer, Marianne was their star witness. I was not in the courtroom for her testimony because I was a character witness for my dad. with the press covering this quite heavily in the newspapers, we heard about this testimony. Marianne alleged that he sexually abused, assaulted, tortured, and murdered Brenda Sue Schaefer. She was testifying about helping dig the hole for Brenda that my dad and Marianne buried her in. My dad drove that car to the freeway, and she followed him in another car, and he got out, took a regular, household steak knife, stabbed the tire, and then they drove off and left the car. But where was the evidence of all of this? They didn't find any DNA evidence on Brenda. No proof whatsoever. Marianne Shore told them they took pictures of him, but the police searched the house twice. They didn't find anything. She's been a liar all her life. We did not trust her at all, and we had no doubts in our mind that she was the one that killed Brenda. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. That was my father's defense. If Marianne Shore couldn't have Mel Ignato, no one can. She set him up, and we believed it. We just thought that she was going to take my dad down any way she could. Now, this is Marianne Shore during the trial on the stand and telling the story of what they did to her. She didn't shed a tear. She was emotionless, but she's pretty adamant here that she did not kill Brenda Sue Schaefer. And trying to pin it on my dad. I had nothing to do with it. He's guilty, and he knows it, and I know it. And nobody believed her. Nobody, the jurors didn't believe her at all. When they first came out with the not guilty, I mean, you talk about the weight of the world off your shoulders. I mean, it was amazing, that feeling that you were vindicated, that we knew all along my dad didn't do it. This proves us right. You could tell he was extremely emotional, and then the joy sets in. The picture of joy. This picture was the day after my dad was acquitted. There was a big press conference on the steps of the courthouse. And man, is he happy. I mean, the look in his face of relief. I'm standing right by his side. We were absolutely ecstatic. He was proven innocent. We stood by him. This is a great day. Looking at this picture now, knowing what we know, I just want to punch him in the face, I hate to say that he's my dad, but you just want to be like, man, what a liar, Oh my gosh. Marianne Shore had cut a deal with the Commonwealth's attorney in order to testify against my dad that she would get leniency. I believe she thought she wasn't going to serve any time whatsoever, but I believe she spent at least two to 3 years in the federal penitentiary. When my dad was arrested, we came to realize that we had, to sell his house, his car, his boat, his possessions to come up with money for his lawyers. So when my dad got out, he came to live with me. He didn't really go out in the community too much. He pretty much stayed at home. 9 months passed. Thursday night was my bowling night, so my dad was sitting on the couch watching TV. My dad would be up all hours of the night, so I knew he'd be up when I got home. And I guess I got home about 11:30 at night. walked in and the lights are on and the TV's on, and there's my dad's partially drank Coke on the table next to the couch, and he wasn't there.
Hey, Dad, I'm back.
I'm like, yeah, that's weird. He's probably downstairs doing laundry.
Good night.
I went to bed. And when I woke up, the lights were still on and the TV was still on.
Dad?
And my dad wasn't there. And I happened to look and I saw all kinds of messages on my phone. Mike, have you seen the news? You know, give us a call. I think one of them was my aunt. Called my aunt. She said, Mike, your dad's been arrested again.
What do you mean?
She was like, they found the evidence that implicates him in the murder of Brenda. They found the film that Marianne Shore told them they took pictures of. It was in his old house.
How is that possible?
The new owner of his house had wanted to replace the carpet. And so they had a carpet company come in and they were tearing out the carpet when they uncovered a hidden air duct in the floor. The carpet company found this bag of jewelry and undeveloped film. And knowing the history of the house, they immediately called the FBI.
I gotta call you back.
And they developed it. And it was everything that Marianne Shore told them. She was telling the truth, but nobody believed her. I hit the floor. I really felt like the biggest heavyweight boxer punched me in the stomach, and I couldn't stand. And I just hit the floor. Once they discovered the true hard evidence, the smoking gun, as you will, that showed my dad, doing these things to Brenda, they couldn't recharge him with murder. Once you have been tried for a crime and acquitted, you cannot be recharged with that crime. But the federal government wasn't giving up. They were now charging him with perjury. I went down to the courthouse. My dad had agreed to admit everything, and he stood up on that stand in court and admitted everything. Said he was sorry. That was a tough day. It was arguably the worst moment in my entire life. I can't tell you how mad, how upset, how disappointed that we all were. When my dad was convicted of the 2 charges of perjury in the federal trial, he was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison. He ultimately ended up spending a little less than 7 years in prison. I'm a little torn on that because I am a believer in the death penalty. I think, if you kill somebody, you shouldn't live. I mean, I really, truly believe my dad should have been put to death for that. Brenda's family, they really, really got cheated out on what should have happened to my dad. I did not see my dad for 7 years. I did not go visit him in federal prison. I didn't want to. I felt so betrayed and so used. There was no way I was making a trip to go see him. He can rot in hell. He asked if he could come and stay with me. I had to do some serious thinking about it, and I just decided it was probably the right thing to do. He was my dad. He needed a place to live, and he had nowhere to go. My dad and I had some conversations about what had happened, and he did apologize to me during some of those, face-to-face conversations, but we really never got into it very deep. I don't think I ever really believed that he truly accepted the responsibility. My dad ended up staying with me for probably about, 9 months to a year after he got out of federal prison. I'm not sure I ever really forgave him. I love my dad enough to take care of him and do what I felt like I needed to do, in his later life. I'm not sure I've ever forgiven him for what he did. Once my dad moved out, I would go by and check on him all the time. On Monday morning, on my way into work, I decided I'm going to stop by and make sure everything's okay.
Hey, Dad, open up.
I knock on the door, nobody's answering. His van is out in the driveway. So I open the door, and what I see is it's just a horrifying scene. I see this broken glass table, and there is blood everywhere. And I'm like, oh crap, this is not good. His walker was laying on the ground, and the leg was bent. You could tell that he was probably walking on it, and it collapsed, and he went into this coffee table. I followed this trail of blood into his bedroom, and I walked into his bedroom. I turned around, and there he was up against the wall, on the ground. He crashed through a glass coffee table, cut his arm really bad, and ended up bleeding to death in his apartment. He didn't grab his phone to call for help. I think he just decided it was time for him to lay down and die. When I saw my dad on the ground and the scene, I honestly felt relieved. In my mind, I felt like, is this finally over? Can we as a community finally move on from this nightmare that he caused? That was a tough way to die, but I'm a big believer in karma. When Marianne and my dad murdered Brenda, they had her taped to this glass coffee table. And it was ultimately a glass coffee table that did him in. That is karma, the definition of karma. It got him. I recall a hearing about Marianne Shore's death really didn't happen too long after she had been released. She died of either cancer or a heart attack. Marianne Shore's role in this, it's really hard to wrap my mind around. To this day, I still believe she's the one that got my dad to kill Brenda. Her ultimate goal in life was to be with my dad, and she would do anything and everything possible to make that happen. He did it, but I think it was her that pushed him to do it. Over the years, I've put a lot of thought into what was going through my dad's mind when he decided to kill Brenda. The only thing that I can think of is that she was the icing on the cake to this perfect life that he created with the nice house, the nice car, this ultra successful man who's on top of the world. And when she decided to break up with him, I think it crashed his dream. I just think he lost his mind. And to this day, I still can't really understand it. I tried not to harbor all that, anger. It's just not good for you. But I have such hatred for Marianne Shore and what she did to our family. She was an evil person for the majority of her life. And I don't know how she convinced him to do it, but I, in my heart, believe she was ultimately pulling the strings.
We were just eating spaghetti at the dinner table, and I was slurping my spaghetti and she was not having it, but she was slurping her spaghetti. I thought it was funny. I was a kid, and all I remember is just eating my spaghetti and then just feeling like a super intense piercing pain and looking over and I had a fork in my arm. I don't ever remember going to the hospital or anything. I just remember sitting there and like getting stabbed in the arm and looking over and they're just like my arm literally bleeding with a fork in it. I have a tattoo that covers the scar from my mom. It says I forgive you and then it's Mary Bernice Rolls underneath. It's my mom's initials.
Mary Rolls sobbed in court. Alice Jenkins showed little emotion as they heard the long list of charges they were about to admit to.
I have had cold-blooded murderers stand in front of me, rapists, child abusers, burglars, drug traffickers. I would have to say that the two of you are perhaps the coldest, most unfeeling, least empathetic criminals I have ever seen.
You don't really know like what's going on inside people's homes. You just don't know. There's like demons inside some homes and like you just don't know. It's scary, man. Like your neighbor, the person across the street, or someone like your family. It could be your family member. You wouldn't even know it's happening. My mother's name is Mary Rolls. From age 15 to 21, she had 6 children. The furthest back I can remember is 1997. I was living with my mom and my brother Tyler, my sister Marissa, my brother Daryl and Danny, and Caleb had just been born. She was like a really good mom. There's early photos of us like going to Chuck E. Cheese and stuff like that and like just being kids. Before Alice, my mom treated us pretty good. My mom met Alice at a gay nightclub in Akron, Ohio. And then the next thing I know, we're living in a new house with just Alice. My 3 older siblings, Daryl, Danny, and Marissa, moved in with their fathers, and I was left with Alice, Mary, my older brother Tyler, and my younger brother Caleb. And for a while, everything seemed okay, but Alice saw herself as the boyfriend, the man of the house. This is the house that we lived in last. I was 14 when I saw the house last. I just get like a little nervous when I see this. It seemed for years we were never gonna make it out of that house and away from Alice and Mary. It's just like, I don't know. It just makes me nervous because it just this house makes me think about just like dark times. Nobody knew what was going on. At first, Alice treated us pretty good and like pretty kind, but over time she kind of got like jealous of the attention that Mary was giving us. Alice began to separate us from our mother and tie us to the bed when she went to work.
Get on the bed and lie down.
Tyler and I were both put in the same room in the beginning. 2 twin beds side by side essentially. And she would tie us by our wrists and our ankles to the bedpost, so we would essentially be strung, like laid out so we couldn't roll over or move around. Alice was never aggressive with it. She was just very quiet and very stern and just wanted to handle business and be done with it. And Mary was taking care of Caleb most of the day because he was still a baby at the time. So I didn't see much of Mary.
Stay here and be quiet until I get back.
So we'd just be like in a room tied to beds, Tyler and I side by side. I didn't really understand like what was going on. It scares me more now, like as an adult, than it did when I was a kid. I didn't really understand it then. I was just so young and like just seemed normal. After a while, we figured out how to untie ourselves, and then we come downstairs to like hang out with our mom and hang out with Caleb. Alice would get very frustrated. She'd come home and see that we were downstairs with Mary and we'd escaped. But it definitely appeared as though it was kind of a game, because like we didn't get punished for escaping. We would just go to bed and repeat the process. It seemed like that was the game of it all, was to be tied up and then to escape and then to be tied up and to escape. It just seemed like she wanted the separation between Mary, Tyler, and I, trying to like break that bond. Alice sort of became the divide between Mary and her children. When we would escape during the day, she would come home and we would be doing the same thing, just on the couch, hanging out with Mary, trying to spend time with our mother. And one day she just separated us into separate rooms. And tied the opposite opening doors together so that we couldn't get out or open either door. She was very quiet and reserved, and almost seemed like it was just a task that she had to do. Almost as if we were just animals to take care of. The doors being tied together felt less of a game and more like a punishment or like imprisonment. There's like nothing really to do in the room. You're kind of just sitting around from like 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. when Alice would come home to give us dinner. There's just no word to describe the emptiness of just feeling like you're all alone, like trapped in a space for an extended period of time, and there's no way to track time, and you're just there by yourself. There's no one there to talk to. You're kind of just like left in your own head, left to your own thoughts. Tyler and I liked banging on the walls and making music. That became a way that we would like talk to each other as well, just like tapping on the wall. Even after dinner, we were still taken to our rooms and the doors were tied together so that we were just left alone in our separate rooms at night. Mary never said anything to us once we started being separated into separate rooms. Sometimes she wouldn't even like be there when we were at the table to eat dinner. It would just be us. We'd eat real quick and then go back upstairs. I do think it was to keep all of Mary's attention and focus on Alice. Alice's behavior slowly got worse, and she started withholding food from us, essentially starving us. Up until this point, Alice would let Tyler and I out of the room. Most of the time we would just have Captain Crunch or something for breakfast, just a little cereal. And then for dinner, the majority of what we had was mac and cheese and hot dogs. But I just remember one day her coming up and opening the door, and I'm sitting there and she just has a paper plate with a half peanut butter sandwich on it. That was our dinner. Like half a peanut butter sandwich didn't seem enough for a dinner or to last you through the whole day.
You eat your sandwich, and when you're finished, you go right to bed.
I just thought it was just like a snack or something until it started to become routine where she wouldn't let us out. It went from having dinner downstairs and breakfast downstairs to like eating in the room all the time. weren't allowed out to use the restroom. That's when we started using the corners of the bedroom. We would pull up the carpets and use the restroom and then put down the corner of the carpet so Alice couldn't find it. And we did that for months and months. It's just crazy. It's very animalistic. No one should have to survive like that. I was not able to talk to Tyler during that time. I assume he was getting the same food I was, but we hadn't seen each other for 10 to 11 months at that time. At that point, it's almost like the days all connect because everything's the same. We had no other contact with Alice besides that, and Mary didn't do anything in this situation.
Is everything okay? They're fine. They're just having dinner.
Mary should have called the police in this situation, or called CPS, or called a family friend, or her parents. She could have just walked out. She didn't stand up for her children, defend us, protect us like you're supposed to. I've asked her why she allowed it to happen multiple times, and she says that she was strung out on morphine and just simply wasn't herself. But it's not supposed to be like that. She failed. She should have just left. Mary had taken Daryl and Danny and Marissa's fathers to court for custody. Mary wanted partial custody, so they'd come over and visit and hang out for a couple hours on the weekend. There was a honeymoon phase of about 2 weeks to a month where everyone was on good terms and we all just slept in normal beds and we had breakfast and dinner downstairs. Alice was kind of like trying to cover her tracks so they couldn't say anything when they would return home to their biological father. One day we're just woke up and we're dressed in very minimal clothes like shorts and a t-shirt. Now I'm just like being walked somewhere with Marissa. And we had never been outside at that point. My first day walking to school was the first time I ever remember going outside, and I didn't realize there was a whole world like outside of the bedroom. Alice is standing on the sidewalk in front of the house, watching Marissa walk us down the street to the elementary school. I didn't understand what school was even. We were all very unequipped to even be in public at the time. We couldn't read, I couldn't tie my shoes, we weren't potty trained. They were literally sending wild animals to school. But don't remember any of the teachers asking any questions about my size or my malnourishment or showing any concern, and I don't remember ever telling anyone at school either. We were going to school for about 2 to 3 weeks and we were just taken out instantly, all of a sudden. I hope that one of the teachers reported something or someone said something, but I don't know if any of my teachers knew what was going on. Nothing ever came of it. Nothing was ever done about our situation. And once Alice and Mary pulled us out of school, things started to get worse at home. It was about a week or two after we had stopped going to school, and we had seen kids out on the sidewalk coming home from school. They're hollering up at us.
Say hi, guys.
And they're like trying to get us to come play, like, let's hang out. And like, that's all they were trying to do, just like kids being kids.
We can't come out. We're not allowed.
We're hollering down to them, tapping on the window, but then it ended up like getting us in trouble. Because Alice came home and was like freaking out.
What the hell is going on in here? Get away from that window.
What are you doing? Like, you're not supposed to be by the window. People shouldn't know you're in here.
If you can't behave yourselves, you can stay in here.
And then that's when the closet thing started It's a 3x5 closet with a carpet inside. There was no shelving, no overhead bar to hang anything, just an empty closet, no pull string lamp, nothing. And so she puts us in the closet and just remember that padlock going on and like it being really dark in there. First time that Alice put us in a closet, I thought it would be a one-time or just like a short span punishment, but it just ended up being continuous and ongoing. In the beginning, the closet door was just getting locked, and then over time, a large brown dresser was acquired, and they would take that dresser and put it in front of the closet door, so that if she ever forgot the lock, which she did a couple of times, the dresser's there. For about 3 years, we were spending periods of time in the closet, which is complete dark. Like, there's no light except for the light that comes underneath the door. And we would get fed super sporadically. Not let out for breakfast, not let out for dinner. There was no regular schedule. Alice came in whenever she pleased to feed us. Alice would come upstairs with half a peanut butter sandwich and either let us out and we would have to eat it in front of her on our knees, or she would open the door and just give it to us, and we would eat where we'd been using the restroom and sleeping. There would be 2 of us sharing this half a peanut butter sandwich, so we would eat as slow as possible, just like essentially like little hamster nibbles, and then we would vomit it back up and eat it again. It's a tough one to think about. It was a survival tactic. Actually, I struggled with a huge eating disorder when I became a teenager because of like my body could not keep food down. And I have terrible vision from like being locked in the dark. At one point, we had thought that we could escape through the closet, like digging a hole out of the house. We were just using our fingernails to like dig our way out. Tyler and I were confined to the closet for anywhere from a couple of weeks to a month at a time. And we're in complete darkness, so we don't know what time it is until Alice opens the closet door. I didn't have a concept of day or night, and like, I didn't understand the concept of telling time. Now that I know how to tell time, and I know what a year is, like how fast a year goes by, and then like 1 month or 2 months in darkness feels like 10 years. It's hard to keep track of like who you are and how old you are, and time is super foggy. And so now I always keep track of time and I manage time and I try to do as much as I can with the time I've got, but it's a long time. It seems like such a long time. Can I take a break, yo? Sorry. I just had to take a break because I got starting to get like PTSD tunnel vision when I was looking at you. I was like starting to get lost because it feels like I'm still there, just like in that box. This is the closet, the 3x5 that we were in. And Tyler and I would just share this space. When I see it fully lit up, definitely feels like a different space. I always remember it as just like a large black box. And you can see we tore the paint clean off the walls in a few spaces, and we did that with our fingernails. There were often times we would end up sleeping in our urine because we wouldn't be allowed to use the restroom for days at a time, and would just have to use the restroom in the closet. It's insane to think that we survived in like just a small space, just him and I, for like so long, and like held out. It's just crazy to think that Alice could have put us into an environment like this for so long. physical violence was towards Tyler. It started with him getting kicked in the groin, and then him getting kicked down the stairs. Alice just had a lot of hate for Tyler. Tyler and I would be in the closet, and we would be too loud for Mary and Alice while they were home, just by talking. Anything that disturbed Alice's time, Mary earned you a spanking. You can hear her steel-toed boots that she wears coming up the steps. It would sound incredibly heavy and ominous and dangerous and aggressive.
She's coming.
That became like the notorious sound, just pounding. The second you hear her hit that bottom step, it's like, be quiet, don't move. If she can't hear us in the closet, maybe she'll forget we're here.
You know, I can hear you all the way downstairs.
She would essentially call us out of the closet and force us to get down on your shins and knees and look up at her because she wants that power of people below her.
Get out here.
But
Now.
She would spank or whip him with the belt. It became like less about like getting fed and more about just like surviving. I would have rather died of starvation than him gotten beat a couple times. And I have talked to him. He just feels like he was treated like a slave. That wasn't fair. I would do it all over again just to prevent all of that. One day, Tyler and I are taken out of the bedroom and taken downstairs and sat on the floor in the family room, and a trash bag of stuffed animals and toys and trinkets, which we'd never seen before, spewing all over the floor.
Go ahead, play.
We're not like really playing, we're just sitting there. And it's all super strange, and we've never been given anything. And two strangers we've never seen before came into the house. I thought maybe it was just like some of Alice and Mary's friends. We didn't know at the time that was CPS. I believe CPS was prompted to come to the house because someone, either Marissa or Danny or Daryl, said something to their fathers. Danny and Daryl would come over on the weekend, so they would come upstairs and hang out with us. Alice would let Tyler and I out of the closet, so we would be in the room and you could smell the feces in the bedroom. And I assume over the span of the years that Danny, Daryl, and Marissa were saying something to their parents or their teachers at school about our conditions, but CPS never went upstairs, never looked at the bedroom, never looked at the closet. They didn't ask us any questions at all. If they would have just gone upstairs and turned the corner into the bedroom, it would have been over, but they didn't. Alice seemed super calm. Mary really let Alice do most of the talking. It's like theater to Alice. It's all just like a big show to put on.
Thank you so much for coming to check in again.
When they left, Alice packed up all the stuffed animals and the toys right back into the garbage bags that they were in. And we were taken right back upstairs and put right back into the closet. Once Alice had that first CPS visit and they walked out the door, she knew she was golden. She could get away with it. In 2003, Daryl, Danny, Marissa, Tyler, myself, and Caleb were all living in the house. Mary wanted full custody, and my 3 older siblings moved into the home with us. We were always telling Danny and Daryl that we weren't getting fed, and then that would get back to Marissa. Marissa was essentially our golden ticket. Marissa had let us out into the room a couple times, and then Marissa would sometimes be the one to like have to lead us to the bathroom because Alice doesn't want to deal with it. She was never inhumane about anything. Like, she definitely looked out for us. One time, I remember Marissa letting us out of the closet, and she talks about how Alice and Mary went out. We asked her if, like, can we go downstairs? Can we get some food?
Please. Alright, but we have to make this quick, because they could get home any minute.
And we went downstairs to check out the kitchen. to find the cupboards were packed, the fridge was packed, everything completely full. And in that moment, it definitely made Alice seem like more of just an outright evil by choice person when she clearly had all the resources to provide and she just chose not to. I was definitely overwhelmed that even that much food could exist in one space. We took anything from cans of Pringles to Gatorade to granola bars, everything that they had we took upstairs. And we had Marissa put us back into the room.
You can't tell anyone about this. All right?
Locked us back in the closet. And we ate as much as we could. I've never been so full in my life, and it was delicious. And when Alice got home, she was furious. Absolutely furious. It was probably 2 or 3 days before we got fed again. Alice lets us out of the closet, and we're kneeling, and she's standing above us. She had a bowl for each of us. She just puts it down, and, we all see it. And she just told us that we had to eat it for stealing her food.
What's the matter? I thought you were hungry.
We were forced to eat feces.
Eat it.
And we assume it was the family dog, from the backyard. Sometimes I think about, I didn't have to do it. They didn't have a gun to my head, but, I just felt so trapped in that situation. Makes me feel super low as a human. And it still takes a toll on me today. I still think about that all the time. That affects you as a human being. You have to be low to be able to force someone to do something like that. To take away their humanity. In 2003, I was 8 years old. Alice was feeding us once a week at that time. I hadn't seen my mother in months, so at that point, I kind of knew we were just on our own. I just want to get out. I start to try to convince Tyler and everybody else of the same thing. We were mainly trying to figure out how we were going to get out of this situation, because at that time, Danny and Daryl had already talked to their father, Marissa had talked to her father, and nothing had happened. And that's when we started planning for essentially a getaway plan. So one evening, Marissa comes into the room while Alice and Mary are sleeping, and she lets Tyler and I out of the closet, and Daryl and Danny and Caleb are all in the room, and she's like, we gotta do it now. And she's panicked, frantic panic.
What are you doing? Shh. Stay quiet. We're gonna get you out of here. What? Right now?
She was like, tonight's the night, tonight's the night.
It can't wait. It has to be now.
And that's when she had mentioned that we should try to go out the window.
You gotta go with them, Daryl. Make sure they get out okay.
Then we have to decide, who's going. Because there's 6 of us, we all can't go. Because if Alice comes back in and looks in the room, the same people have to be in the room.
We have to get you guys out first. Yeah, you guys have to go.
Daryl, Tyler, and I decide to leave. And Caleb, Danny, and Marissa stay behind.
We'll be fine. Now hurry.
Marissa tried to cover our tracks. She had put the dresser back in front of the closet just in case Alice would wake up and come in. Daryl wants me to get on his back, and then he's gonna climb down the gutter. So I get on his back, and he shimmies over the edge of the roof, and he slides down the gutter. And when we land on the floor, the gutter breaks and makes the loudest bang. We're waiting for Mary and Alice's bedroom light to just turn on. We all froze, and we waited for a couple minutes. Bedroom light never came on. Tyler jumps down from the roof, and then we start walking up the street. There's a bit of adrenaline, and then you realize, you just escaped, and, you start, looking around, and, the sky goes all the way up, and there's trees everywhere, and it was very overwhelming. It was crazy. It was beautiful, though. Myself and my siblings, trekking to freedom, and, it's more beautiful now than it was then. three near naked boys walking in the streets at 3 a.m., malnourished and unclothed and unbathed, no shoes, no socks. It almost looked like we were homeless. We had no plan. It was just like, just get out and walk, and like hopefully someone would do something. We walked around the corner and got some water from a hose from some lady's house, and there was a house light that was on. And there was a lady just standing in the curtain, like watching us. And she's holding the curtain with one hand, and she's got the phone in the other hand. No more than 30 seconds later, we get a cop car that comes zipping right at us. And they pull us over and ask us why we're walking around the streets of Akron. And we didn't want to say anything at first out of fear that we would just end up right back at Alice's and they would side with her. We were all sitting in the back seat, and that's when they had offered to buy us food if we would have a conversation with them. And they had taken us to get sandwiches and large sports Gatorades. A foot-long sub with meat and veggies and cheese and things I never even had before. I had no clue what the sandwich was, still don't to this day, because I'd never had it before. And the second we started eating in the back of their car, they noticed like how animalistic we were eating the sandwiches, and they realized something was wrong. And that's when we kind of started to tell them that we're being locked in a closet and starved and abused, and this is going on.
What do you mean you live in the closet?
We're not allowed to come out unless Alice says we can.
They're not responding. They're just like sitting there, just like staring at us with like blank faces, just taking everything in. I was very terrified that they would not believe us. They make a radio call, and we're just like sitting there in silence, essentially. And they get off the radio call, and we just start driving. They literally tell us, we're gonna take you back home.
No, please!
So we're screaming, and we were freaking out. We're like, why are you taking us back?
You're supposed to help!
We're trying to get as low and scrunched in as possible so that if they open the back doors, they're gonna have to like literally pull us out of the car because like there's no way we're going back to the closet.
All right, we're taking you back.
It was very nerve-wracking. I definitely thought they were going to just side with Alice just like everybody else had.
You can't take us back there!
And then they're just like, relax, relax, we're not taking you out of the car. And then they stayed in the car with us, and a bunch of other police showed up. They kicked the door in, rushed inside, and then the next thing I know, out walks Alice and Mary in handcuffs, side by side. And that was the last time I saw my mom. I still think about it sometimes. It's definitely a moment that like plays in my head. And like it's nice. Like, I don't know. That was like the moment that like we were all able to like get some peace, and they were gonna pay for what they did. These are me. These are 2 photos I keep on my phone. It's like I kind of just look at to like remind me where I came from. These 2 pictures show the abuse and neglect and malnourishment that we faced under Alice and Mary's wrath. I was 8 years old and I weighed 28 pounds in these photos. I don't have any chest and my sternum's caved in a little bit. I've got huge bags under my eyes. Like I haven't slept in weeks. I remember like being this size like for a long time, and just like felt like years. I felt like a really old soul in that body. I'm just proud of myself too. Like I know he's proud of me and I'm proud of him. This is my favorite photo. I take a lot of pride in this photo. This photo was taken about a year after. This was like the epitome of being like a kid, and I would just like ride in circles in the driveway all day long. These were good years in my life where like nothing bad happened, where I was able to just like soak up time and like be a kid and do what I wanted, and I didn't have to worry about anything, and people were taking care of me. Someone who wasn't my mother was willing to give me like time and attention and effort to like have a childhood.
Mary Rose sobbed in court. Alice Jenkins showed little emotion as they heard the long list of charges they were about to admit to: kidnapping, felonious assault, endangering children, and then...
Ms. Jenkins, what is your plea? Guilty.
Alice and Mary both pled guilty and were sentenced to 30 years. I think that both Mary and Alice pled guilty just to limit the time they'd spend behind bars.
Judge Patricia Cosgrove held Mary Rolls just as responsible, even if she may not have initiated the abuse.
At any point in time, if you acted as a mother in this case, you could have prevented the harm to your children. You chose not to.
Now, I'm already halfway through those 30 years. It's been 15, so in 2033, they both get out. And like, now that I like start getting closer to that end date, just doesn't seem like enough time. Our conditions as children were worse than their conditions in a state prison. These are their online inmate photos. Alice definitely looks tired in the eyes. Mary has changed a lot. She looks super old. It just makes me angry that they could still be smiling. They almost look content and comfortable with where they're at. Back in 2017, I'd contacted Alice and asked her why she did the things she did and if she felt any remorse, and she claimed that she didn't do anything wrong and that she was playing the role and doing the job that Mary should have done as the mother. Mary, she writes me occasionally. Mary would always just reply that she's sorry, she should have never let it happen. I don't believe her apologies. I think it's just what Mary expects people want to hear. But it was important to forgive her and not forget it, but just to let her go and let her existence be hers and let mine be mine. I want to forgive Alice, but I haven't yet. It's hard to look back on what happened between me and my siblings, but we endured and made it through. Daryl ended up having kids of his own, and Danny's doing pretty good. He's married and has a couple kids, and I talk to Danny pretty regularly. Tyler as well. I haven't talked to Caleb in a few years. I love Marissa. After years of separation, I was able to get in contact with her and meet her beautiful children and see her as like a full-grown parent. She was just a good mother. Like, that was her dream. Like, that's all she wanted, was to be a mom and do it right. And on her way home, she dropped the kids off at school, and then on her way home for dropping her kids off at school, she got hit in a head-on collision by a street racer, and it killed her instantly. I don't know, man. I just think about Marissa every day. I want to know why it all happened, and we could have been a good, like, strong family. Like, there's no reason we couldn't have been. I know, like, I could have died in that situation. Like, they were gonna let me. So, like, I see the world through a lens where bad things are probably happening. And I just want more things to be done about it. You look at the homes, like, nobody knows what goes on inside a house. Like, nobody. You just don't know. There's like demons inside some homes, and like, you just don't know.